that ward had a fireside where Elder Bednar was going to be there. And I just kind of like got to the point, I was like, okay, like I knew I was supposed to do this big work. Like I had this huge work to do. I was gonna like just be one of those people that they always talk about our generation, like we're gonna change the world, you're gonna prepare the world for the second coming. We always heard that. And I knew I had this like huge work to do. And I remember being at this fireside and just like hearing that over and over and thinking like, okay, but like where do we start? We have this huge thing to do. Like, how do we even just like that's huge? How do we start? And so I raised my hand. I asked Elder Bednar, like, okay, we know that we have all this stuff to do, but where do we start? And he looked at me. He goes, Sierra, what I'm about to tell you, you already know, but you need to start by being a good girl. And I know that some people, that's kind of hard, for some people to hear, but for me, it wasn't harsh at all. It was just like exactly what I needed. Because for me, it meant try.
Jesus land if they live righteously.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, and to say that I am excited for this interview would be the understatement. When we have guests on and they say, "Oh, you know who you need to talk to," that excites me. And when I first read of our guest, I was like, "Oh, come on now, let's get this happening." Sierra Larson is her name, and maybe you go, "Oh, I don't know." Well, let me tell you who recommended her: Jenna Carson. Probably, if there is an popular episode of the last year. People loved her. And when she says, "Hey, you know who you need to talk to?" I said, "Listen, it's done. It's basically done. Now it's just getting scheduled aligned." Welcome into the Cultural Hall.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Now, there's a lot of firsts that get associated with you. First lieutenant, is that correct in rank?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that people will go, that's probably not what it is. We dove into this a little bit with Jenna as a female chaplain and a first of a kind, but maybe not first, but maybe there was and all that stuff. So what firsts apply to you beyond lieutenant?
I am the first Air Force Reserve female chaplain for the church. I am the first African American female chaplain for the church. And I think that's it. I think just those two.
But I think that those are amazing in and of themselves. I would like to be like, in this, I'll own every bit of this, like future leader of the church. Let's put that up there. That's me saying that. When I get the opportunity to visit with people that their path is different than mine, I'm Utah bred and Utah born and did the 2-year thing. Whenever I get the opportunity to be able to speak with anyone with a different path, a different journey, I welcome it. So thank you for being here and being open to it. Where do you? I don't want to go to chaplaincy and all that, although I am fascinated about that, and so I do want to get into that. But with the journey, your walk with Christ, with your faith, all that stuff, where do you consider it kind of starting?
So I grew up in the church. My grandma converted in like the 1970s, and she was living in Chicago Heights, and she had missionaries knock on her door, and they asked her, what would you say if we told you there was a living prophet on the earth? And she said, I would say that's exactly how it should be. So she was pretty much like the golden investigator, got taught the lessons. Her and my mom got baptized. And then I came along and grew up in the church. Grew up in the Chicago Heights ward when I was little, although the Chicago kind of moved all around. So my high school was like across the street from the Chicago Temple. And so just grew up in the church, did all the things. I think for me though, I've always had like a really strong testimony. I just knew like God the Father, Jesus Christ, like they're real, they're there. My grandma jokes that one time I asked her, if that's God's kitchen, where's his bedroom? When we were in a church building one time, and that's like her favorite story to tell. So I grew up with a really strong testimony. Like I knew the church was true. Um, about at the age, I think it was like 12 or 14, I'm not quite sure, but we went to a trip to Palmyra
Cool.
and I was in the Sacred Grove and I was just like, you know what, this is real, like this is true. But just because I knew better didn't mean I wanted to do anything about it. So I kind of just did my own thing for a little bit. I went to church, but I was just kind of like not all in, you know?
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I was in college. So I think I was like it was my second year of college. I did 3 years before I graduated. And so it was about my second year of college. And I was in a YSA ward because honestly, I want to like be proud of myself for being in the YSA, but it was mostly because they started at 1:30. So like I could go to the parties and
Yeah.
then go, you know what I mean? Like go later. And so that ward had a fireside. It was like a multi-ward fireside where Elder Bednar was going to be there.
Hmm.
And I just kind of like got to the point, I was like, okay, like I knew I was supposed to do this big work. Like I had this huge work to do. I was gonna like just be one of those people that they always talk about our generation, like you're gonna change the world, you're gonna prepare the world for the second coming. You know, we always heard that. And I knew I had this like huge work to do. And I remember being at this fireside and just like hearing that over and over and thinking like, okay, but like where do we start? Like we have this huge thing to do. Like, how do we even just like that's huge. How do we start? And so I raised my hand. I asked Elder Bednar, like, okay, we know that we have all this stuff to do, but where do we start? And he looked at me. He goes, Sierra, what I'm about to tell you, you already know, but you need to start by being a good girl. And I know that some people, you know, that's kind of hard, you know, for some people to hear, but for me, it wasn't harsh at all. It was just like exactly what I needed. Because for me, it meant like it meant try. Like, and I wasn't
Right.
trying, you know what I mean? And it just meant try. And from that point on, I was at least trying. Like I wasn't perfect. I made mistakes still, but like I was at least trying. And then it was the trying that led me to a mission. I did my mission in the Dominican Republic, Santiago mission. We're getting a
There you
temple.
go. There you go.
So I did the mission, got home, met my husband like a few months after I got home, got married, and just started on this like awesome journey of life. But that's kind of, yeah, that's my story.
So, grandma joins a church, I would presume based on timeline, and I don't want to make this a big issue of this, but I think that it's pertinent to at least some of the story and background. I would imagine that she joins the church before the priesthood ban is lifted, yes? Or is she
Yes.
late 70s? Okay.
It was I think it was right around the same time, if not right after. But I know my granddad didn't join and my uncle didn't join because of that. So
And
yeah.
so, even today, I mean, that many years later, for some saints, that's an issue. That is, if it's not a stumbling block, it is, uh, a much greater thing. Is that has that had any sort of impact on you as you've kind of seen these strong women of character who have stuck to their faith and been able to do it, who certainly have the impact on you to be the amazing person that you are? It doesn't seem like it, but I would be curious to know if it has.
I make everything a matter of like personal revelation.
Sure.
And so for me personally, it was something that I prayed about a lot. It was just something that I looked into and made and came to a conclusion for myself. I don't really have anything for anyone else other than like make it a matter of prayer, and research for yourself and see which the answer that you get. But for me personally, it was just a matter of like Jesus and I are good. Like we're, you know, we have a really good relationship. And so we talk through it and we work through it. And it was something really personal for me to be able to like work through. And I think we all try and make sense of things in the church like that, like, you know, that polygamy, things like that, those, you know, like, ooh, you know, and I think that we just kind of gotta like rely on that relationship and and the revelation that comes from that to have our questions answered for ourselves. So that's the best, yeah, I can give you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a valuable thing for people to be able to hear because I think that we want a blanket answer. I think that we want to be able to be like, and this is this, and now there is peace around this. And I think that it can be, but something that you may struggle with is something that I may never struggle with at all. Something that I may struggle with is something that you're like, geez, that's done. Not, I haven't even ever had to even think about that. I love the idea and the uniqueness of our faith that we are allowed to be able to take that to God, to be able to be like, hey, what, like, help me have some peace about it. And in some cases, I know not a lot of people will find like an answer, but that God will deliver a, hey, you know what, we'll get this figured out. But for right now, you're doing what you need to be doing, you're going where you need to be going, and then accomplishing those things as such. So I appreciate that answer quite a bit. I think that's a valuable lesson for anyone struggling with anything. And when we talk about questioning within the church, I think a lot of people hear that and it's kind of oogie boogie a little bit, like, oh, questioning. I think all day, every day, question all the things. When you
Absolutely.
when you get done with your mission, were you like, man, this sharing the gospel, working in the gospel, like this is where I'm at, and chaplaincy became kind of the road? Or how did you go from Dominican Republic, you meet your husband, here we go, life, and now you're an Air Force chaplain?
Yeah, so I graduated college. Like I said, I graduated in 3 years. I spent random year in Vegas and just was out in Vegas for whatever reason. I know the Lord brought me there, but it was just so random. And so I was in Vegas. I decided to serve a mission. But I graduated with a psychology degree, and so when I got off my mission, I actually went to up to Chicago for my MSW, so my master's in social work. So I got my master's in social work first, and then was getting my hours. So you need like 3,000 hours to be fully licensed
Hmm.
as a licensed clinical social worker. So that's my day job. So I'm a chaplain as a reservist. So
Hmm.
obviously I'm on orders right now. But my day job is, or yeah, I do it at night, but my day job is I'm a therapist. And so what I wanted to do, my husband's also a reservist, so I was like, oh, that's not that bad. Like I could be a reservist. And so originally I wanted to be a therapist um in the reserves, but they didn't have any billets or basically like job openings for
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And I kept getting this feeling like, oh, there's something you can do. There's something you can do. You need to be in the military. So, excuse me. So I kept looking at it and chaplain kept coming up, but I was like, oh, that's a priesthood thing. And I'm I'm the opposite of Jenna. Like, Jenna like fought it, she worked really hard and I love that she did that and that was her mission. Like she was so called to do that. I was called not to because I'm typically the person that challenges things. Like, I was the person that like would be like, well, why are we doing this? Like that's not right. I'm naturally that person.
Hmm.
And I think Jenna's like one of my best friends, so I say this with all the love in the world, but she naturally isn't like that, I think, personally.
Hmm.
Sorry, Jenna, but like she's so sweet. If you know her, she's just so sweet, but she also is fiery too, and she is a great advocate for so many things. And we talk about, we have our podcast too, where we talk about like kind of the time for her was for her to push that. And the time for me was for me to just wait for her to do that. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of cool to see that. And anyway, so when she was kind of doing that on her end, and I was just like, what's a chaplain? Into Google, and eventually figured out what it was and figured out that the church changed the regulation 2 months before I looked into it. So
Wow.
just barely, yeah. And yeah.
I love hearing that. I, most recently for me, as I've kind of thought about my life, and we always hear this idea of seasons, or of like God knows what's best for us, and I think we kind of place it in these things of like God knows what's best for us, and we don't even really think about it, or we just it's sort of a statement that we make. But to know your natural, you're naturally drawn to be one that challenges, and then didn't in this case, didn't feel that calling. And then vice versa with Jenna, that she was like, oh, I'm not normally, but let's go. I mean, people that heard her story, I think one of the reasons why people really like that is they were like, let's go, is what they adopted from her. I think that going back to your previous thing too, just states how much we have to like be in line with what God wants for us and be sensitive to the promptings that he's giving us. Because if not, we can feel like, oh, this is the thing. And that's us being the way that we normally would be when God wants us to be something different in that time.
Yeah. And I can honestly say Jenna was very much guided by the Lord to push that, to push back on that.
Sure.
Um, Definitely. tradition. I think it was the first time we met in person. And we ended up in In-N-Out, which I'm always at In-N-Out when I can be.
Sure.
And we were talking, we were in our dress blues, and a couple comes up to us and they're like, "What do you guys do in the military?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm a chaplain." I'm like, I'm still a candidate at this time, but I'm like, "Yeah, she's a chaplain and I'm a candidate." She goes, "Oh, my granddaughter wants to do that." And I got
Wow.
chills. I looked at Jenna, I said, "You know what? Her granddaughter can do that because of you."
Hmm.
Because of what you did and your fight, there her granddaughter gets that that's even an option for her is incredible. So yeah. Yeah, Jenna's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. The idea of being able to see it and then be it, I think, is a tremendous example. I think that we think a couple hundred years into the church, it's all been done. We've all been all these things, and there are still so many things that amazing women like both you and Jenna, just are able to step into, in a faithful way, um, in a God-led way, to be able to say, "Hey, here we go. Let's go. Let's see what this is like." And who knows? I mean, you didn't know. I don't think that you at 15 were like, "Yeah, chaplaincy, that sounds great." But that's what you're doing now, and people are able to see that in you and in your life. I think it's tremendous.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the best job in the world.
I want to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll keep kind of unpacking the story, what exactly an Air Force chaplain would do. Being a reservist, I bet it's a little bit different than maybe we might assume. So we'll get into that and come back in the second block of the Cultural Hall. I had an email from someone who listens to the Cultural Hall. I believe it was not a lifer, but a convert, who said, "Hey, Richie, are you still teaching the podcast classes?" And the answer is yes. In fact, I have even fine-tuned it more than I ever had before. So you might be asking, well, Richie, how do I get in on that? Well, you can always email contact@theculturalhall.com, or you can find me on social media wherever I'm at, Richie T. Stedman, and reach out and say, "Hey, I listen to the Cultural Hall. I would love to learn more about podcasting or your podcasting services, a class, a cohort." There's a group of people. I've even taught the ward historian about podcasting, what it is and how it might be a great benefit to people. If that's something that you're interested in, whether it's for your business or just for your private hobby, maybe something you see your future in, would love to be able to help you along the way. You can find me again anywhere on social media, Richie T. Stedman, or you can just contact us, contact@theculturalhall.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Let us podcast together. To be clear, this is still a show. Here in the second block of the Cultural Hall, remember, you can always send us an email, contact@theculturalhall.com. Love to hear from you if you love this episode. If you think, "Oh man, you interviewed my friend Sierra, now you have to interview my friend, whoever this is, next person," contact@theculturalhall.com. Love the recommendations and love being able to connect. It would probably suit us if you tell that person that you're going to recommend us for an interview. That makes it a little easier. I welcome the awkward, though. "Hey, we want to interview you. How did you even know who I was?" Well, Sierra told me. You can email us, contact@theculturalhall.com. A reservist chaplain. So to me, I think reservist is like one weekend in a month and a couple weeks in the year. So is that when you're chaplaincying, chaplining? I don't know what the term is.
All of it. It's all of it.
Okay.
No, so I'm actually a specific kind of reservist called an IMA, which is a little different than what you're describing, which is a TR,
Okay.
traditional reservist. So I actually get to go split up my days however I want.
There
So
you go.
I am currently on orders, and I just do them all in 1 month because I have 3 kids, and my mother-in-law came out to help my husband with the kids, and she got to be there for a month, and I'm here, and yeah, so I get to do them all at once, which is really nice.
So is it like you can be like out of the country? "Hey, we need you in Germany for a month. Hey, mother-in-law, good luck with my husband. See you then."
No, I'm stationed in Beale, so I have like my required time that I need to do, and I usually do that in January. And then if I want to pick up orders around the world, I can, but my required time is here for the month. Yeah.
So much of what I feel like a chaplain is it's about connection and community, where you're not constantly doing that. How are you able to? That seems like 0 to 100 in a month, and then it's like, "See you guys next year. Love you. Bye." Like,
Yeah, it's literally been like a whirlwind, every single thing. I am big on events. Part of what Jenna and I do together. We do events, spiritual events and retreats. So when I come in, it's just how many events can I squeeze in? So right before I was here, I was doing a morale event, a game board activity where we just opened up a conference room with a bunch of games and airmen could come in and take a break from work and play some games and connect and talk. And I got to chat with them, see what's going on in their units, kind of be able to get a vibe for morale on their units and how everything's going. So I really like to plan events. So I did that one's all week. I did a self-care event at a wellness retreat place for some other caregivers. I did a I called it the insomniac cookie
Okay.
operation. So my RST partner and I baked about
I don't know what an
300.
RST partner is.
So basically you're in an RST is you have a chaplain and an RA, a religious affairs airman, and you
Okay.
both are in a partnership.
Okay.
And you usually go around and minister like a companion. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So she and I baked probably over 300 chocolate chip cookies, and
Mm.
we went around to all the night operations and just ministered to them. Because a lot of times people on nights don't get a lot of the stuff that we do for days because, chaplain, not always isn't always there at night sometimes. So we wanted to give them an opportunity to just say, hey, how's it going? Check in on them, give them some cookies, boost morale that way. So we did that event, and then I am working really hard. I leave in 2 weeks. I'm working really hard to get a mobile smash room together.
Okay.
It's exactly what it sounds like. We're putting up a tent and we're smashing stuff as another morale event. So just like high impact things that I can do very quickly. I always say like, give me a week, I can put something together. So I love events. I love being able to kind of take that retreat model and put it into being a chaplain and just do something that's really high impact for people. And yeah.
It seems and I see this sort of on my ward at a ward level that like people warm up, right? They're gonna warm up and then they start to share things. Uh, you have this sort of in and out kind of thing. I would imagine that though that even though the time is short, the impact is immense. Is it just a matter of like, hey, we're smashing stuff, but also I'm in tune with the spirit and seeing who may need me to come alongside them, like, or is it just listen, we're doing stuff and who knows, maybe we'll get that time to minister in that way.
I know for sure, like with the cookie drop, we were able to really just talk to a lot of the people on nights and just see like what's going on in their lives. And we do a lot of what's called unit engagement. So we go around to the units, we just say, hi, how's it going? I'm the chaplain. And the first couple times it is a little weird, but like the times you go back around, you're like, hey, how's the baby? Getting any sleep? How's
Right.
your dog? You have to get to know them really quick and you have to remember those things. Thankfully, with my therapy background, I'm able to do that. But yeah, you just kind of build that relationship super fast and you go around, you chat with them and get to build that bond really quickly. And thankfully, I'm at the same base. So when I come back, I can still see a lot of the same people. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing that I feel like is I wouldn't say missing because you're obviously doing it and people members of the church are able to do it on some level, but it does seem like it's getting harder, the art of just like being in community with one another. And then is there a not misnomer, but like is it misconstrued sometimes where you're like, I'm the chaplain and they're like, no thanks, no Jesus, I'm good. Is it that kind of thing, or has chaplain sort of translated into this is just someone who cares about me who's going to come around and visit?
Yeah, definitely the latter from my experience, what I've seen. I think we've taken it used to be more like you had to come to the chapel, and now Chaplain Corps is really just going to out into the units. And I think because of that, they're getting used to seeing us like, hey, we're normal people, and we're here if you need to talk, if you need anything, like we're here. But they know that they can just come to us no matter if they're religious or not, and just say what's on their mind. The biggest thing about us is we have 100% confidentiality, so they can tell us
Mm.
whatever they want, and that provides a lot of security and safety for members so that they're able to like actually say what they need to and they're not worried about like any kind of repercussions or anything like that. So,
We're a couple weeks into a new president and things are crazy. Those are my words. I'm not putting those words on you. How has do you see a large, let me make sure that I'm setting you up for a question that you can answer. Do
I was
you
gonna say
see,
I can't answer that.
yeah, no, I was just going to say, do you see any sort of shift? Do you like, is there a feeling there's not a way you can answer that? Okay.
No,
Uh,
especially not in.
yeah, no, I understand. I understand. Um, it's a tremendous ask, I think, for some people. Do you have any sort of advice to be able to create community? I'm not going to be a chaplain, but it's something for me that I would like to be better at. I'm a fairly friendly person, but every time, I look at the visitors welcome sign, I'm like, I'm not really doing that very well.
Yeah, I love that question. My calling is actually a stake relief society president.
Okay.
And one of the things that I feel really strongly about is, and our motto in our stake relief society is every sister seen.
Hmm.
Because I feel like everyone needs to just be seen and heard and understood and accepted. And um, that for me is like non-negotiable. Like, as members of the church and as a community of Christ, like we need to make sure that everyone is like feeling welcome, doesn't feel alone, feels like they have a friend and a genuine friend. And I think because of how I grew up in the church, like I had so I was kind of a weird kid. Like I had undiagnosed ADHD and
Okay.
kind of just said whatever, and so I kind of knew what it felt like to not quite fit in. And then when I started really getting good friends in the church is what helped me to be in the right places to have that conversion experience that I talked about earlier.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest things that we can do is just have genuine friendships. And people know when you're just being church friendly versus like actual friends. So what I
Sure.
mean by that, like if I have something at my house, like I have just like friends over from church at my house, like I'm inviting everyone. And people are like, wait, what? It's not a church event. I don't care. Like if we're friends, we're friends. That means we're friends in church, we're friends out of church.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we kind of do that fake friend thing, and I hate
Yes.
it. Like just I have no tolerance for it because you feel that. You feel when you just are like bringing cookies by and chatting or whatever, just to check a box,
Sure.
or you don't really feel like you fit in with the other people's friends. Like I have a birthday party for my kids. I invite everyone. Everyone's invited. If you have kids, like come. Or if I have a friend, like if I have just a party at my house, usually we do Super Bowl parties, but I'm not going to be there. But everyone
No.
would have been, yeah, everyone would have been invited because that's real. Otherwise, it's like, what are you doing? Like it does more harm than good. Like the fake friend thing,
Yeah.
you hear like, oh, yeah, this one gets me. It's like I don't have to be your best friend to to be nice to you at church or something. I've heard that before. It's like, yeah, have you heard that? Like,
Yes.
oh, we can be like church friends, but I don't have to be like real friends. And I'm just like, no, you have to be real friends. Like that's how it works.
Sure.
Um, and that's hard. I'm not going to say that that's not hard because not everybody meshes well at the beginning. I've definitely had people that I've met in some of my wards where I'm like, oh, you're going to be hard to get along with. But, and I'm probably the same thing, right? Like
Sure.
people have probably looked at me and said the same. But I just keep trying and getting to know that person. And those people that I've like thought that about have literally we've been so close. They've come to my house, we've chatted. I love them dearly. And I think you just need to give it time and effort. Like you just need to understand people. But I think a lot of times afraid to do that.
Sure.
Um,
Do you
but
think that it's just a consistency thing? Because I guess I'm trying to drill down. So you don't know this, but my wife's not a member of the church, and
I didn't know that.
she has a superpower of phony friend from church. And
Mm.
you can imagine, hey, we're the missionaries and we wanted to come by and visit you. And I just go, that's great. If you want to come by and visit me, here's what you should know. Like, do you still want to come by? And it's funny. And I actually have appreciated, though it sort of says on the nose what they wanted to come by for when I'm like, I mean, she's not interested in you guys coming by and doing that. And then they say something like, "Oh yeah, no, we're not going to come by." Then it's like, well, I appreciate you. I at least appreciate that honesty as far as that goes, because otherwise, it's this situation where it's like you're telling me that you're not here for this reason, and you're here for this reason. I think people like consistency is part of it, but there has to be something more. Do you have a leg up because you're a licensed social worker that you know how to just sit with people? Because I show up and I just bull in a china shop, make a mess, and then I go, yeah, hey, all those things. Sorry, but I'll be back.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of hard too because I feel like I'm more the crisis friend.
Hmm.
That's just my nature. Like if I'm the friend that you could call at 3 a.m. because something went down and I'm over at your house, I'm handling things, whatever needs to happen, I'm there. But
Hmm.
if you needed me to come by every day for 3 weeks at the same time, like I'm not that friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm just not that, and I've tried to be, and it doesn't work for me. But I am the friend that like if someone dies, call me. If something happens, call me. Like I am for sure the crisis friend. And I don't think that you don't have to be the friend that you call every day, or you don't have to be like, just all like have all of this. But if I see someone that I know from church, like in the hallway and they're sitting by themselves, I'm like, hey, how was your week? I'm gonna remember something they told me, like, oh, or maybe I'm friends with them on Facebook and I saw that they got a promotion or something like, oh, I saw you got a promotion. How's it going? Like, how's the new position going?
Mhm.
Anything to just connect because I care about them. And
Right.
I think that people make that maybe like not as like overcomplicated. Like sometimes it can be overcomplicated, but that's all it takes sometimes. And all they say is like, "Oh yeah, it's been great, awesome," or they'll say like, "Oh no, it's kind of stressful. I still can't really figure it out." And then they tell me it's kind of stressful, and I know throughout the week like, "Oh, they're probably having a stressful week." Maybe I do something with that, maybe I don't, but maybe if I'm baking cookies that week because I happen to be baking cookies, I'll just drop them off. But there's
Mhm.
a difference. It's like with a note that says, "Hey, hope your week gets better. I know it's been stressful,"
Sure.
versus like, "I'm bringing these cookies because I want you to come to church or to check off my ministering, box,
Right.
So I think it's all about why.
It seems like such a silly thing, but it is an art that we have lost, I think. And COVID, I think, sort of put the death knell in it. I would hope that it's not actually a death knell, but that we would be able to be better about it. But like I look around, my sacrament meeting, we I affectionately will call it things like the roundheads and nearly deads. It's a bunch of very young people and then a bunch of really old people, and then me and a couple other, middle-aged folks. But it is people that know each other and they continue to know each other, and people who don't know anyone and maybe we will never see them again. And I just feel like, living up to that idea that you know, if God loves everyone, which we know he does, part of loving everyone is even just being able to know everyone. And it's not like, I don't need to know, oh, when she was 7 she this, and when 8 she did this. But it just is like, yeah, you have a son, right? Great, how is your son? Oh, good. We make it harder, and then we still continue to not do it, even though we have this great conversation about it. There's still people, myself included, that just go, I should go over. I'm not going to go over. That takes some sort of putting myself out. I don't know why I don't do that. It's a lot more comfortable just here. I love them. I love them. But do I have to? Okay. Let's just sort of sit in it.
So I would say in that situation, it's like, this is the movie from Netflix, and they had this quote. It's called Wedding Season is the movie, but the quote in it was, "Let your love be greater than your fear."
Mm,
And so when I have the like, because I'm kind of introverted a little bit by nature, so when I have the like feeling of like, oh no, I'm gonna shrink and hide in this corner, I'm not gonna talk to anybody, um, I have to think to myself like, okay, I need to turn out, let my love be greater than my fear. Like if I'm feeling like, alone or awkward or anything, like someone else is probably feeling that way too. So I'm gonna go over there and just say hello. The biggest thing is like inviting them to stuff. So if you know that there is like we have a WhatsApp group for moms that is just like we get together, we play, we let people know if we're going to the park. If anybody else wants to come, they just put it in there. if there's someone new that they have a kid, I'm putting them in that group, or I'm putting them in just the church group anyway.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, it's that way like if there's a party or something happening, like you'll be invited. Or if this is my biggest thing. It's my biggest pet peeve. I'm
Preach.
sorry.
Come on. Preach
Woo,
it.
man. If you invite someone to a church activity, you are responsible for making sure you introduce them to everyone. They are
Yes.
included in all of the conversations, and that you sit by them and you are their host. You host them the entire time. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this and I'm sorry. I'm gonna be like, I hope this is like a righteous anger, but like, that people will invite somebody to church
Mm.
or to an activity and then leave them by themselves to sit alone.
Yeah.
I don't do that. Don't do that, you know? And I'm probably preaching to the choir. Anyone listening to this was not you, but if you ever see that, like just go over there and introduce them. It takes 2 seconds to bring them into a conversation and catch someone up. Oh, hey, we're talking about Susie. She just got a new dog. She got a new puppy and she's showing us pictures.
Hmm.
And like now they're included in the conversation. You welcome them in. Like it's not awkward for them or for you. They're not just standing there not knowing anybody, you know. So it's so easy. And what the thing that breaks my heart is how hard like these missionaries, these people, like you'll have missionaries that work their little tails off to get people to come to church
Sure.
and they get baptized and then no one talks to them and they leave and everyone's like, "Oh, what happened to so and so?" Well, they didn't have any friends, so they stopped coming and their friends from wherever they were before are like, "Hey, where you been?"
Hmm.
Or how, oh, this one hurts too, is the prayers of parents who are praying for their kids to go to church and stay active in the church, and they go to like a YSA or something, and they finally are like, yeah, no, I wanna be here, and they don't get included.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I feel responsible. I don't know about anyone else, but I feel responsible for that. Like it's not on my judgment day.
Yeah.
You're not gonna hit me with that one. Like you're not gonna hit me with that one because I no, that won't be me. But yeah, sorry. I don't know if that was
No,
a
I
huge
know.
tangent on my
I,
soapbox,
I
but
no, I love it. It is a thing to me. I've recently thought about, we do a lot of these fifth Sunday lessons, and it's like porn is our fifth Sunday, or and all these things are, I think, are valuable, and I like to choose to believe that those that are in leadership are appointing these as they're necessary. But oh, that I wouldn't love a, hey, we're gonna talk about being welcome to people, and here are some ways that you can welcome people. So, sit by someone you don't know. There's someone struggling with a child. If you know them at all, try and give them a hand. A strange person, or like I can remember you talk about, the getting investigators to church as a missionary. I served in Cleveland, and there were times that we were like, oh, come on, please. And they would come. And it's like, someone come and give these people the idea that we are a friendly people and bring them in. I would love that to be a lesson like that. And I don't know if we think it's beneath us or if it's not like Christ centered enough or something like that. But I would just love, like, hey, here's what being like a good host church attendee is like. I don't know.
yeah, I would love that too.
Uh, and,
I
and- oh, go ahead.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
please.
I was gonna say like with being on orders, sometimes I'm in a lot of different wards, so I can always kind of see like the friendlier wards or not. And I'm at the one that I'm here, sorry, the ward that I'm at here. I remember my first day coming in, and no, no one really talked to me. Like a couple people did, and they were like, "Oh, okay, nice to meet you." Kind of sat by myself, and I remember I was like, okay, I'm done. And I left. And this woman comes running after me, Rebecca. Shout out to Rebecca. She's so sweet. She comes running after me with a piece of paper. She's like, here's my number. Thanks for coming. And I'm like, everyone be like Rebecca.
Yeah.
Everyone be like Rebecca because she gets it. And then the next week that I came, she sat by me. She pulled out this book she was reading. I happened to be reading the same book.
Oh,
But she
now I
pulls
got to
out
know
the
what's the book. What's the book you guys were reading?
3 Feet from Gold.
I don't know anything about that book. I know this is
Oh,
not what you wanted to say, but what is it about?
it's a business book. It's about Think and Grow Rich. It kind of puts those principles and condenses it. It's really good. I would read it.
Okay. Three feet
I
from
am
gold.
reading it
Yeah.
again, but yeah. So
Link
she
in the show notes. Sorry. So
yeah.
Rebecca says, "Look, I'm reading this book," and then instantly you're able to have a connection. And if when you come back, it's, "Hey, where's Rebecca? What's going on with Rebecca?" It gives you a foot to, if she's not there for some reason, be able to reciprocate to her.
Yeah, exactly. And it was that simple.
Yeah. Still seems intimidating for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I think there's always the fear of rejection, but I don't know. I kind of just take the approach that if they're there, they want to be around people because they came around people. So I
Yeah.
think the expectation when you go to a church is that people will welcome you and be friendly and try and be your friend because that's what Jesus told us to do. So I think they're expecting us to do it, and you're doing more harm than good by not doing it. So that's
Yeah.
my opinion.
I'd agree with that. Let's take another break. When we come back, there are three questions we ask everyone who steps into the cultural hall. I'll ask those of you. Plus, I got a couple other things I want to know about. Coming back in the third block. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Uh-huh. Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com. Here in the third block of the Cultural Hall, I encourage you to become a Patreon saint of the Cultural Hall. You go to patreon.com/the Cultural Hall. As little as $5 a month. It puts your money where your ears are, supporting this great show. If you like it, you can make that monthly donation. You can also reach out, contact at theculturalhall.com if you're like, listen, I don't want monthly. I forget about those things, and then it ends up billing me for months I don't want. You can do a one-time thing. No, we're not a nonprofit. Yes, it goes directly to my pocket, which is where I pay for the things that make the show continue. So contact at theculturalhall.com or patreon.com/theculturalhall. Sierra, the idea of mourning with those that mourn, I would think also you mentioned sort of in this crisis thing that you've seen some stuff, if we can put it that way. Um, we give me advice for being able to mourn with those that mourn and comfort those that stand in need of comfort. We sort of talked basically about community, and maybe some of these principles are the same, but I feel like in an increasingly divisive world, we go, I'm not going to comfort that person because I'm not going to mourn with them because, and I just think, if I was looking over in the room as we're chatting and Jesus was there, he'd just be like, you all need a little bit more me, a little bit more of this. You know what I'm saying? Give me an idea of how we can do that, how you do that. I'm not saying you're perfect. We know that, but
I will say I've been at a lot of deathbeds, and at a deathbed, it all goes out the window.
mm,
I don't know, it's just a certain spirit about you're so close to the veil, and I think the closer you are to the veil, you realize we're all here together. We're all the same. We're all children of God. And so I don't think anyone's ever cared who I was. I've never cared who they were other than just children of God, like getting through something together, being, supporting them in that hard time. It's never really, I think it's like you're saying, in a divisive world. Honestly, if I, could relate it to that, I would say it all goes out the window
mm,
in that hospital room. Like you're just people because at the end of life, it puts things in perspective quickly, very quickly. They care about their families. They care about whatever affairs they needed to get in order that may or may not have gotten in order.
mhm.
And and their spirit, where they're going, or if they needed to confess something or anything like that. But I think the last thing they were thinking about was, gender, race, or politics, at
Yeah.
least in my experience, at
It,
that last moment.
it seems like such a heavy responsibility, and one that, it shows that the tremendousness, not a great word I should have used there, of your character, just being awesome is, I guess, what I want to say. Just being awesome. Do you find yourself, it's like middle of the night, hey, hospital, are you like, all right, God, here we go, help, deliver me the words? Is it things like that? Or are you like, I got to be in the zone all the time because I never know when I'm getting called up to the big leagues? Tell me about like maybe the tactical part of that.
It's a little of both. I live my life kind of very close to white handbook standards. Very close. And that's just a personal thing. I try to, I try to make sure the movies that I watch are good. I try to make sure, like, I listen to a lot of Christian rap because I
Mhm.
used to really like rap music and then stop listening to it. So, excuse me. I listen to a lot of Christian rap. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah, there's a radio station called Boost, and like they play all of this like really fun music. So I live my life as best I can, in terms of like whatever will keep my relationship with Jesus as direct as it can be. Like he and I are very close and we talk every day. I'm like, "Hey, like I got this thing going on. What should I do? Who needs my help today?" Like I'm talking to you. Like that's how we are.
Mhm.
And I've come to really value that in a big way. So I do a lot to protect that. Um and then I also recognize the spiritual authority that I have as a chaplain and what I've been given and set apart to have and endorsed. People can get into the semantics of that, but as a covenant keeping woman of the church, like I have had miraculous things happen. Just things that I couldn't even describe, just like truly, truly miraculous things that I've been able to do through my ministry and prayer and faith. And I think that I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
No, 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 you're fine. So what the tactical part of like going into this, do
Oh
you
yeah.
before you go into like a deathbed, you're like, hold on. All right, God, give me the things, let's roll. Or is it
He's yeah, so he's there the whole time. Like
well,
we're just
sure, sure.
yeah,
But
you know what I mean?
I wondered if you were like, as you're driving, you're speeding to the hospital,
Yeah.
is it like, all right, check in, because I got 35 seconds to help me say the things I need to say, or is it just like, no, I'm just gonna live open-minded and I've said things and I go, do I really think that? Wow, I didn't know I thought that. That kind of stuff.
No, yeah, no, I'm like if I got called right now, I would probably be listening to hymns on my way over there.
Hmm.
And the whole time I'm like, okay, what are we walking into? What do I need? Um, I've been in moments where I had nothing to say. It was just quiet, and I'm like, Lord, like, I'm like literally like, hey, like, what am I saying? And then it comes to me, and it's a partnership. Um, and it's just like direct access like through the spirit, and so I protect that as best I can throughout like life,
Hmm.
but in the moments of crisis I'm relying on it's my lifeline. Like I'm relying on that. I'm like, hey, I don't know what to say, give me words please. Hey, I don't know what to do, what do I do, what do I, and I just follow the spirit and it works out because that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to lead and guide us, and I'm there to do good and to serve, and so the Lord gives me what I need to do that.
For whatever reason, prompted to ask this question, what's the value in just being silent and being present? Have you found that and how does that work? Because so many times we go, I've got to say the right thing that makes them see, and then they gotta, well, at least he's in a better place now, and that actually is not at all the thing that you should say. The value of silence. Tell me how you've seen that walk out, or when to just be like, nope, this is not me, and there is nothing coming. Let's just keep that nice and quiet.
Yeah. I think there's kind of a certain people are afraid to be silent because they feel like they need to say something that makes it better.
Mhm.
And I think it comes from the understanding of this person's dying what can you say to make it better? You
Right.
know, like what do you think you're gonna say that's gonna make the situation better? You're not. You're not gonna say anything that makes this better for them. There's no well at least. They're like, I would trade any at least for this person right now, if the for the family members. And so I think just the understanding and the validation that comes from there are no words,
Mm.
period. There are no words. This is horrible. This is awful. I'm sorry that this is happening to you. There are no words.
Yeah. that that's pretty powerful. Just a statement in of itself. I am I'm impressed. Everything you said, our time and our conversation has been very, very valuable to me. I love being able to hear about the great work that you're doing and the way that God. I think it's so tremendous. And you sort of alluded to this, and certainly in the conversation I had with Jenna, there's a lot of people that can be like, well, women could do this all the time if they had the priest, and all that kind of stuff. And those are my words. I'm not putting that on you. But but what I am impressed by with you is that you're like, well, I'm going to do this because that's what I'm going to do. And other people can be worried about all that kind of stuff, but showing up and saying, hey, you know what, this sucks and I'm here, or maybe not even saying that at all. I think it's a tremendous journey.
So I will say to that effect of like women could do this all the time if they have the priesthood. I personally, and I don't know, so I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but I personally take this stance of like there's nothing stopping you. I would go pray at hospitals before I was a chaplain.
Mhm.
Like, if you feel called to go do something simply in the name of the Lord and you have the relationship with Him that you can say, Lord, help me serve your people. We've already been asked to mourn with those that mourn.
Right.
I'm like, I have a badge, but like, you don't need that badge to go and do that. You don't, if somebody's in the hospital, I have a rule. If somebody in my ward is in the hospital, I'm going to visit. That's it, period. Because I know what it feels like to be in a hospital bed and no one comes to visit you,
Oof.
So if you feel called to something, if you feel like, well, if I had the priesthood, I could go pray by people's bedsides and heal them. Go pray. Ask in faith for healing for that person.
Mhm.
A righteous prayer is powerful, is powerful. Go ahead and do that. I personally don't believe that God would be like, well, you're not a man, so I'm just not going to listen to that prayer. And even
Right.
no matter how much faith you have, I'm just not going to listen to it. Like, I don't believe that. Well, I do think that there is power, in the priesthood ordinances and that has its place. I don't think you're lacking anything to go and do the work of the Lord.
No. I appreciated that. Like, it was hard to even get that out in a straight face. A God that's like, nope, sorry, woman. That's not going to work for me. If you wouldn't mind having a man go ahead and say that same thing, it's like, what what are we saying here? Just take a second and think about what we're saying. Of course. But I love that feeling prompted and being close enough to the Lord that it's like, let's go. Let's do this thing. And to your point, the mourn with those that mourn, I mean, that's the baptismal covenant. Anyone that's members of the church, you are covenanted with God to go and do that. It's not just like, hey, that's a good suggestion. Like, he's like, you promised. Are you going to do it? Because here you go. Let's go. Let's do this together. There are three questions that we ask everyone who steps into the cultural hall. Before I ask you that, you alluded to the podcast with you and Jenna. Tell me about that, where people can find it, what it is, what it isn't, all that.
Yeah, we have the podcast Guiding Light. We're on YouTube and Spotify, and it is just a place where we help you follow the peace. So we have it's an interfaith podcast. So we have people of all different faiths, all different backgrounds, and we just kind of see how they follow the peace and how they follow the guiding light in their lives. So our goal is to help people heal physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And then we also have some online workshops and trainings. And then we are planning for a retreat, an in-person retreat. So we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up.
Super cool. I hope you'll let me know about that when that comes around. That would be cool to at very least help promote, at very most be able to come out and hang out with two of the coolest women that I've ever interviewed on the show for sure. First question, you already answered, so I'll just reiterate it. Do you have a calling right now? And if so, what is it?
I am the Stake Relief Society president of the Brandon Stake,
And that's Brandon,
Florida.
Florida. If you could pick a calling for yourself, either one that exists or make one up, what would you pick?
I would love to teach. It's actually my husband's calling, but the youth Sunday school teacher.
Okay. Now, does he
Mhm.
team teach with someone else then? Because you're the Stake Relief Society president. So you're like, move over. I'm teaching with my husband. Let's go.
I would love to do that, but no, yeah, he teaches with someone else. So no.
Okay. Okay. And then the last question, you probably know because you've listened to some episodes, but the question that we ask everyone to interpret it however they may like, it is, what is your favorite part of your faith?
Mm. My relationship with Jesus. We're close. We're really close. And it's just sometimes like I think before I had this relationship, I just would get upset that he's not here, Like, man, just come back already. It's been forever. It's been like 2000 years. Come on. What are you doing up there? But then I started realizing how often, like he's willing to be with you as often as you're willing to let him be with you. And how much I protect that. Um, I can I can feel him stronger when I protect that. And I realized how many things were getting in the way of that when I was, not being a good girl, I guess, and so now I'm just like, well, I'm gonna read my scriptures because then I can hear him more clearly. I'm gonna pray because then we can like talk and it's like a really good conversation. Like I feel closer to him. I can like I'm on the phone with him. I'm gonna go to church because somebody's gonna say something that was the thing that he knew I needed. So it's turned very much from this like check box. I go to church or read my scriptures is actually if we have time for the story real quick.
Yeah,
I
please.
was reading my scriptures the other day just to read my scriptures. So I like opened my book real quick, read two lines, closed it, and was like, okay, go back to my day. And he stops me and he goes, Sierra, was our relationship better because of that scripture study? And I was like, no. He's like, what would you read or do to make our relationship better right now? And I was like, actually, I'm really curious about this. I think I wanted to read about the second coming or something that I didn't quite understand instead of just like reading a couple lines from Come Follow Me.
Hmm.
And so I went back and read it and like understood something a little bit better. And I was like, oh, no, this helped. This was helpful. I actually feel closer to you. And so just the act of stopping to do the thing for a deeper reason than just doing it. So I think my favorite part about my faith is just like having Jesus with me in a really real way, in a really, really personal way to go through life with, like you would a spouse. Like, and not to make that weird, but but that companionship, like a companion, like a mission companion even.
Sure.
Like we're just always together and we're doing this work and it's amazing. And I think that everyone can have that. And that lights me up to think about that. So yeah.
One of the things that I feel like as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that we miss out on is because we don't wear the symbol of the cross typically. There are some. I would wear one. I've said multiple times before, if I found one that I liked, I would do it. Because I think just like, and you'll forgive this analogy, but I think that it applies completely. Just like when I wear a Chicago Cubs t-shirt, people will
Go
go, "Go
Cubs.
Cubs, go!"
Go Cubs, go.
And I don't know anything more about that person than the fact that they recognize what that is, and we have that instant bond within that. And I feel like my garments just don't allow that instant connection. Maybe they do in Utah, like I can kind of see, okay, that person has garments, I can tell, whatever, right? But then that gets a little weird. CTR rings, again, another sort of thing. But I feel like that that to me is one way, like, to be able to speak more about Jesus, that like our evangelical and some other brothers and sisters are able to be like, yeah, praise Jesus. And it's like we're like, tone that down a little bit, that I wish that we could turn it up a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't have it on because I'm in uniform right now and it
Mhm.
kind of bugs when it's under my shirt. But I wear a Christus. Like they have the new logo on a
Uh-huh.
necklace and you can just like wear a Christus. And I've worn that before and people are like, oh, that's the church's logo. So I mean, Deseret Book, you can get a Christus and we can start rocking those.
There you go. There you go. I'm not opposed to it. I don't know exactly. It's probably like the full logo though. And I think that
It's pretty small. It's like a little, but yeah.
but to that point, an outward symbol for folks to be able to be like, because I noticed, I was just at the grocery store the other day. Woman had this beautiful just one earring of a cross, and I was like, I appreciate that. I appreciate the heck out of that. And it's just a little thing. I don't know. I think we have probably talked enough about that. Sierra, thank you so much for coming into the Cultural Hall. I hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body, that if you're not healthy enough to listen this week, that you'll be healthy enough to listen next week, and that when the time comes, you will be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger, with a U, will be saving a seat for you on the back row of the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We